Welcome. Thanks for coming. I'm going to introduce our panelists very quickly. We'll share materials with you on screens, and we'll have a brief presentation from Professor Peter Groverman from the Scarpa Center. So take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Groverman. I am the entrepreneur resident here at the Scarpa Center. I actually graduated from Villanova Law in 2010. Happy I'm here today. One of the most interesting things, I'm going to talk about the law of AI. It's kind of a new little frontier here. You know, I like to present this as in a race between innovation, ethics, and technology, law struggles to keep pace. And basically, you know, one of the most interesting things I think to start off is, first and foremost, AI isn't it. You know, you can't sue it, you can't arrest it, you can't put it in jail. So who's responsible? And, you know, I think that's something that is a big question here, because if we're going to be releasing this into the world, who do we hold accountable for AI? And, you know, one thing to keep in mind here that I've been saying to most of the people here in the law school is that AI will not replace lawyers, but lawyers who use AI the best will win the most. So, you know, I think that's just something really to keep in mind here, because we are still very important in this whole process. We're not going anywhere. I think that the AI can be seen as a real good tool. It just needs to be policed and regulated pretty well. It's important to realize that, you know, technology is always outpacing law. You know, there's a thing called legislative lag, and it's estimated that law is 5 years behind technology across the board. And we've seen this all across human history. You know, you look at automobiles when they first came out. You know, there was no red, yellow, green light. There was no driving on the right side or left side. These are actual compliance and regulatory that came into play after the automobile came out. You know, Venmo, when they launched 2010, every FTC regulation and violation was violated. And even things like 23andMe, you know, DNA, is your DNA a protected class? These are questions that, again, the technology far outpaced the law, and AI is absolutely no different. The legislative lag is a very important term, because that really is this gap, and that's where, you know, all these questions are coming into play. So there's 7 main areas that I've outlined here where I identified the greatest legal concerns. You know, we'll start off with IP infringement. You might have heard about over the weekend, there was a artist, calls himself an artist, an AI artist called Ghostwriter. And he, using AI, was able to make the beat, use the voice of Drake, and released a song out on the internet, which went viral, had 25 million plays, and everyone thought it was an actual new Drake song. In actuality, it was an AI written Drake song. So that begs the question then, you know, when it comes to IP, you know, ownership, who owns that? You know, and how do we treat those who share it, those who create it? Is there any penalty for people who share it, create it? You know, these are real big questions, and the regulatory just hasn't caught up yet. So again, I want to pose these questions out there, because it's not just, you know, this one Drake song. You got across the board, all of the different genres of art are being ripped off. And it's just a question of what we do with it. Now, you do have like groups like Universal Music Group, who've notified Spotify and Apple Music that if any of these songs get released and monetized, that there's going to be some legal issues that are going to follow. And you do have a lot of questions about, you know, what is and isn't fair use. But overall, there's a lot of confusion right now, especially in the IP space. Next area is privacy and security. Here's a question for everyone on this call. What will you share? Are you going to allow AI to listen to your phone calls? You're going to download that AI app that's going to listen to your phone calls, and you're going to have that, you know, assistant AI who you say, hey, AI bot, will you make that appointment for me? It's going to say, made it. But are you going to allow that? People are going to allow that. Are you going to allow it to read your emails? Do you want it reading your text messages? You know, these are questions that, you know, everyone's going to have different thresholds, you know, but that's coming. And these are real questions you're going to probably be asking yourself in the next 6 months. So the question is, when and where do we say no more? When is your privacy or your security limited? And it's across the board in terms of all aspects of technology, everything from facial recognition to your smart home devices. This is data now that is going to be aggregated and potentially released to the public. There's no guarantee of security here. So, what data sets are you going to share with AI, and what should we do about it? And what should Google and Apple and AT&T and all these companies, that big data companies that have all this data, what protections should they be putting in place, and how can we make sure that we're not as vulnerable as we currently are? Next area is bias and discrimination. this is really interesting to me. You got good data in is good data out, right? That's a good old data policy. But at the same time, not all data is equal. Us here in America with our own way of life and how we abide by rules and regulations, but just because that's how we operate here in the US doesn't mean that's how they operate, across Africa, the Middle East. And this technology is a universal question. So, what data is put in can really create incredible biases. So, if you have data sets that are trained on Caucasian white males, it's going to have a difficult time identifying people of color, because it's not trained up on that. So how do we treat AI that has biases? Again, questions that really should be taken into consideration, and there is no legal answer or ethical issue yet. And then when it comes down to liability and responsibility, like who's going to get sued? Or these lawsuits are starting now. They are coming in as we speak. But look how many parties are involved. You have investors, you got the operators, you got the creators, you have so many individuals involved in order to get the product that's created by the AI, and into the environment here. And who's going to be held accountable? You can't just say everybody. So it's going to be, the law just doesn't know yet. And so, it's just interesting to think about, as the dust settles, where's the accountability going to rely, and who should be responsible? Especially when it's a global problem. Human augmentation is really interesting. So, some people might not use it because their life is great. They might be using AI because it's a better outlet. They don't have any other option. They might be limited in what they can do for education. In America, overall, we're pretty blessed with what we have. But if you're in like a nation that doesn't have, a systemized educational system, and AI is your best option, that's your best tutor. Again, going back to the biases and how things are trained up, this is the teacher of the future for a lot of people. It's going to be a cost-effective teacher. But what are people going to be learning? And these are questions. And it really is going to be a big divide in the next 2 years of the haves and the have-nots. This is going to be a real question. So the question of then, okay, the people who do have AI, right, and are using AI as this grows, are going to have almost super strength. And that's not even including the people who have you have this like cyborg notion, the people who are going to get the implanted chip in our lifetime. They're going to be superhuman. And what do you do to the person? How does that superhuman person going to treat the person who doesn't have the funds or the availability or option to have that implant, or the access? These are real questions. Employment and labor. I think about Andrew Yang at the last election at the debate talking about universal basic income. Well, we're here. And it's going to be within, again, I'll stick with that 2-year number here because this is only going to get more exponentially incredible. But what do we do with all the people who are going to lose their job? These are real questions. They're going to be replaced. And a lot of people aren't going to want to be reskilled or re-educated. Oh, I spent my 40 years doing this. Now a computer comes in and takes my job. What do we do with them? Maybe there's going to be like a PPP type of equivalent for AI. I don't know. But I do know that there's a lot of questions that come when to the workforce and employment. As for the global impact, Twitter and social media brought on Arab Spring in 2012. And compared to social media, AI is like leaps and bounds greater. I mean, I don't know who saw the 60 Minutes episode last night with the CEO of Google talking about AI. He declared AI is more important to the human species than fire. Okay, well, if Twitter, they never said social media was more important to human civilization than fire, and Twitter took down governments. What's AI going to do? And these are, again, real big questions. Treaties from a legal standpoint are going to be needed to be adopted. Right now, you look at Italy. Italy has limited all of AI. You can't access ChatGPT in Italy, but unless you have a VPN, which you can bypass and get in. But for the most part, it's illegal. But even if the US comes down and says we are going to put limits and restrictions on AI, that doesn't mean other countries are going to do it. So that means you're going to have access to it across the board. But there really needs to be a constitution or a treaty or some type of legal binding agreement and arrangement. And who's going to do it, how they're going to do it, I don't know. Jury's still out. So anyway, thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Peter, for those fascinating and utterly harrowing questions.